In this class, we've already studied a variety of media. And remember, by media, we mean different ways that we communicate, such as newspapers, television, and movies. Today, we're going to talk about another kind of media, electronic games. That is, video and computer games. Let's see a show of hands. How many of you grew up playing these kinds of games on your game systems or computers? All right, then it'll come to no surprise that in the last 30 years, these games have become one of the most popular forms of new media, especially with children. Now, as these games have gotten more popular, some people have become concerned about their effects on children. As a result, in recent years, many studies have been done on the effects of video games. Today, we'll look at some of that research and talk about some of the effects, positive and negative, of video games on the children who play them. But first, how many children do you think play video games? Any idea? Well, one recent survey found that 87% of 8 to 17-year-olds in the U.S. play video games. Pretty common, right? Another study found that 13-year-old boys spend an average of 23 hours a week playing video games, while 13-year-old girls spend about 12 hours a week. That's a lot of time playing games, isn't it? So, as I said, some are concerned about how this affects kids. One of the main concerns is the effect on kids' social development, their ability to get along with other people. Another worry is the effect on their intellectual development, their ability to think and learn. So, let's take a closer look at those two areas. First, social development. We know that interaction with other children is very important for social development. Many people worry that children who play video games a lot are spending too much time alone. Critics say that kids should be playing with other kids, interacting and learning to get along with others. They say that playing video games is antisocial. But research seems to show that the opposite is true, that playing video games often is a social activity. One study found that 60% of game players play with friends. It turns out then that video games may not be as antisocial as some critics thought. Another concern about video games is that a lot of them are violent, and that playing violent games will teach children to be violent. We do know that some popular games contain a lot of violence, like shooting and fighting. For example, Grand Theft Auto is a game that is very well known for its violence. And we also know that children who play violent games are more likely to be aggressive. For example, a study of 13 and 14-year-olds found that those who played violent games were more likely to argue with their teachers and to get into fights. But there really isn't enough proof or evidence to say for sure that video games cause this aggressive behavior, because many of these studies only show a connection between violent games and aggressive behavior. In other words, aggressive kids may choose to play violent games. It's not clear that the games make them aggressive. Okay, those are the social development issues. Now let's look at video games' effect on children's intellectual development. Some argue that because video games are full of action that changes quickly, children don't learn to concentrate on things for very long. They say games cause children to develop short attention spans. Critics also say that many games don't allow children to think creatively, to think of new ideas, because they just follow the story of the video game. They don't make up their own stories. For these reasons, many people are concerned that video games can hurt children's ability to think and learn. And actually, some studies have shown that children who play a lot of video games do have poorer grades in school. However, other research shows that not all video games are bad for children's intellectual development. In fact, good video games can help children learn. This is because children learn best when they're entertained, when they're having fun. Today, many games not only entertain, but also require players to be creative and use problem-solving skills to win the game. Well, as we've learned, there is a lot of disagreement about the effects of video games on children. But it's clear the video games are not going away, so we need to keep creating good video games. Next time, I'd like to talk more about games that are good for children.